It is the picking up the phone, sending a thank you note, engaging with them, inviting them to a special event, a meet and greet or an open house, a breakfast with the CEO. It's having coffee with them. It's those touch points. And it is the dating period, as I can talk about.
You're on a mission, and you just need more people to know about it. And whether you're brand new to marketing or a seasoned pro, we are all looking for answers to make marketing decisions with purpose. I'm Monica Pitts, a techie, crafty business owner, mom, and aerial dancer who solves communication challenges through technology. This podcast is all about digging in and going digital. I'll share my marketing know-how and business experience from almost 20 years of misadventures. I'll be your backup dancer, so you can stop doubting and get moving towards marketing with purpose. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. My name is Monica Pitts, and I'm your host and the lucky lady who gets to interview our guest today. Now, before we jump into the interview, I have a favor to ask. Will you review this podcast wherever you're listening, whether it's on Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes? See, our goal is to help more nonprofits just like you have less stressful and more successful marketing so that they can do more of their good work and make our world a better place. But I can't help them until I meet them. And so your review can actually help me change that. When you leave a review, it helps this podcast show up when people are looking for answers to the problems that the podcast is meant to help them solve. So if you are a Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose fan already and you haven't reviewed the podcast, or if this is your first time and you learn a thing or two, leave a review so we can connect with more awesome nonprofits just like you. Thank you so much in advance. Now let's get to business. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. I am so excited about my guest, Danielle Locke. She's going to talk to us about talking to other people about money. And I know that when I first started my business, I started as a designer, I started as a developer, and the thought of actually having to sell something or ask someone for money didn't even cross my mind until my business partner, who that was her role, left. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm a creative. I'm kind of awkward. And now I'm going to sit down in front of people and ask them for money. Like, I was terrified. And I refused to call myself a salesperson. Like, it made me feel really icky inside because I was like, I'm not a salesperson. And so I hear those same things from nonprofit volunteers and executive directors and development professionals all the time when I tell them, hey, part of your year-end giving campaign is going to have to be picking up the phone. Because I'm going to talk about the marketing, but I'm not development, except for my own company, obviously. But you have to be able to get ready to talk to people. And so in my own company, I actually signed up for an ongoing training program that was like a cross between therapy and skills training to get me to the other side of the fence and be able to call myself a salesperson and build my confidence about asking people for business, especially multi-figure business. And so I was really excited when Danielle pitched this idea to me about talking to you guys about asking people for multi-figure donations, because I feel like a lot of the times that is scary, right? And so she's gonna talk us through it. And the other fun thing is that she calls it dating, like you're dating your donors. So tell us a little bit about what you mean by that, Danielle.
Sure. Hi, good morning. I am Danielle Locke with Lockstep Partners. And in my work, in my consulting business, I work one-on-one with nonprofit directors to help them grow their unrestricted income from donors, from individual donors. And for me, I feel like I've never actually been a salesperson. I've been in fundraising for 20 years. I feel like I've never asked someone to do something that they didn't already want to do, that we aren't kind of in the dating process already know where that's headed. I would never try to convince somebody to do something that they didn't want to do. I always feel like I'm giving them an opportunity to support a mission that they already care about. And so for me, because I look at it that way, and I'm so very focused on that donor and the relationship and making sure that it's a a mutual, beneficial relationship, that I'm never trying to have them buy like a used car or something, like this is a great thing. And, I just always look at it that way. So it brings joy to me. And I know that's brought joy to many of my donors.
I totally agree. In our company, we consult and we help find answers. And so I always tell people, hey, Stacy might contact you because she's our lead sales human. But she's never going to sell you anything that you didn't want or need. And you can always say no. And it's really not sales. We're just helping you solve problems. That's our approach to sales, which is a fun approach. It makes you feel very fulfilled as a salesperson because you know that you're helping someone, even though they're going to reciprocate by paying you money. So let's take a step back and tell everybody about you and what you do, so they understand how are you this awesome expert in this multi-figure ask awesomeness.
Well, I am, the little redhead next door. I fell into fundraising. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, which actually is pretty handy. I went into PR and communications. And then when I graduated, I got a job in nonprofit, and I was kind of when you first start, you do everything: the website, the newsletter, the annual report, the United Way application, everything. And I just fell in love with the whole thing. And so, fast forward 20 years, I've been in lots of different nonprofits. I worked for a large hospital system where I had lots of resources, but I kind of ran my own nonprofit within the organization. But navigating that bureaucracy and the levels and all those steps was really hard and a great experience. I learned a lot there. And I've been in a nonprofit so small where I literally had to build my own desk. I got there and I had half a cubicle and this little, just enough for my laptop and the windowsill. And so I was how am I supposed to meet with people and talk about the organization? So I went into the storeroom and I got 2 file cabinets and an old door that happened to be there. And I put it down, and I put a tablecloth, and I was this is my table. And that's, I've been in nonprofits where I vacuum the floor, and, we've all been there. But for me, I love all of it. I love the missions. I fall in love with every mission for every organization I've ever worked for. The people are just so amazing. The donors, the people that you're in the trenches with, along the way, I got a master's degree and some certificates in financial planning. But I've been there. I've done it. I've gotten the $1 million check. I've also had a donor that gave me $30 every paycheck because, he wanted to see something happen, and over time it built up to something amazing. So I've been just really blessed to have a very diverse experiences and hopefully be able to share that with others at this point.
I love it that you referenced getting the small donations and the big donations. Back in the day when I bartended for a living, when people gave me a quarter for a tip, I was thank you. Thank you for your quarter, because your quarter, 4 quarters equals $1. That is something for me. Right. And then there were other bartenders who would throw the quarters back at the people who tipped them. And I was well, but 4 quarters is $1. You still got a tip.
It all adds up. It all
adds up in the end.
No gift is too small. It all adds up. And it's that act of someone making a donation. There's an old quote that says, it is an emotional decision to make a financial act. And so to write that check, to make that donation, that it takes multi-sides of a person to make that act, and then to do it repeatedly really means a lot. It means that person cares about the organization and the mission, and they believe in what you're doing, and they trust that you're going to use their investment wisely. That's a sacred relationship. Again, I'm always about the person and the relationship. So
well, that's why you call it dating, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you call it that, because I always get frustrated because most of marketing all focuses on the end of that supporter cycle when you are asking. But that's not where it starts. It had to start someplace else. It started with the relationship, right? And so you have to date before you ask somebody to marry them, because it would be very awkward if you just you're beautiful, let's get married. I mean, they do that in romance novels sometimes, but I don't know how it would really work out in real life.
I know.
So you talk about like an average of 18 months to cultivate a donor before they're ready to be approached for a significant donation. And you were explaining to me that there's 5 steps to prepare your donors for multi-figure asks. And some of that is actually like the 5 steps that you're going to go through
right
before you even start cultivating that relationship. So why don't you start at the top and like work us through your funnel, friend?
Well, I think what's interesting is I'm relationship based. I'm all about the people. And for a long time, I was very shoot from the hip, kind of just, did what sort of naturally felt right. Yeah. But honestly, through experience, I always come back to the data, the donor database, the process. I feel like for me, and I think so many of the clients I work with, that digging into the data and getting to know your donors and getting to see the trends, and knowing your organization and what you need and what you're asking for builds your confidence. You're not just going in cold asking someone to just even for the first date, like you've done your homework, right? And so the 5 steps that I say, and it's actually, there's like a lot of little sub steps, but we try to break it down into 5 steps, which is, I always start with the client in doing a quick development assessment, right? Take a snapshot of where you're at and what you're doing. Pull your donor list, whether it's an Excel or some kind of CRM, whatever it is, pull that list out and take a look at it. Start sorting it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to sort it by individuals and foundations, corporations, and whatever else you might have, because you want to pull out the individuals. People, foundations, and corporations give for very different reasons than individuals. And so you want to start targeting that group. It's a good sense of like, how many donors do you have? Do you have 10? Do you have 1,000, right? How many of those individual people do you have? And then, hopefully you've got some history there. You can see like, how long have they been giving? How much have they given, right? I tell clients, take the top 10 largest donors. Those are going to be your first people that you're going to try to cultivate a relationship with. And the people that have given the longest, because even if someone's giving you $20 every year for 10 years, they've made that decision and they probably have more capacity. So pull that list, take a look at it. So that's a big number 1, but it's really like, oh, I love digging into that data and looking at your donors, and it's so much fun, and you see the names and the history, and it really inspires you to want to connect with them. Step 2 is your stewardship. Big word for saying thank you and being appreciative. What are you doing? What is your process? Did they get a thank you letter? How quickly did they get that thank you letter after they make a donation? Is there a personal component? Does someone personally sign that letter? Do they get a follow-up? The little trick is, if you send something personal, like a handwritten thank you note or a call when someone does their 2nd donation or their 3rd donation, it is like a mind-blowing. Donors are just so impressed by the fact that you noticed that they gave a 2nd or a 3rd time. But really, a lot of nonprofits I work with don't have a sense of like, okay, somebody, a volunteer or assistant, the donation comes in, a letter goes out, and that's, they've done their duty, but there's so much more to that. That's where the relationship starts, is that sincere appreciation.
I agree. We have one nonprofit that we actually do their social media for them, and they're part of our year-end month-long giving campaign, Como Gives, that we do the marketing for. The Community Foundation of Central Missouri is actually the distributor of the campaign. But every year we have they have this extra fundraiser, right? And so we were like, you know what, we're going to participate in this thing. It'll be fun. It'll be team building, blah, blah, blah. It's creative. We love it. So they make mobility carts. We decorate a mobility cart. It gets distributed out into a 3rd world country for a person who can't walk. And the first year that we did it, they sent us back a video of the kid who got our cart, because we had a child. We cried. Like, the whole office was like, we did the most amazing thing, and all we did was like decorate this cart with unicorns and glitter. lots of glitter, but I'm like, I wonder if that glitter made it all the way over to Africa. But it was so amazing. And then this last year, because of COVID, we still donated the money, but we didn't decorate the cart. And so they sent us a picture of the person whose cart we decorated the year before. And we're like, hey, this was amazing. Like, you still did this. You helped this person. And we were like, oh my goodness, like this was so amazing.
I love that. Yeah.
And we'll do it every year now. I mean, darn it, just to get that picture. We just want to see somebody on our May Create mobility cart, you know? Now if we could just win the prize for coolest cart.
That's what it is. That's where it starts is seeking opportunities for real connection, for real meaning, to connect your donors with the mission, whether it's a video or a photo or some kind of report, something that ties it back together. So you don't think that your money went out into the universe and didn't do something. When it comes back to you like that, it's so powerful. And you will renew again and again. And the goal of the donor journey is to get that from that first gift, to get additional gifts and grow the gifts so that over time you build that relationship where someone is giving more and more and more, and they're feeling good about it and you're feeling great about it. And it's a mutual relationship. So the stewardship piece is so important to getting started with that relationship. One of the tricks, the third step that I have clients do is break down your services. So this is really about getting to know your organization. And it seems like a weird thing to do. Again, you're kind of like away from the donor relationship, but it's about finding the match. So if you think about all the things that you do, right? I have a client that does senior programming, senior meal delivery, senior enrichment, senior center. They also do a daycare center, and they have a variety of other children's programming. You could just say, okay, seniors and children and homeless. Or there's all these little sub layers, right? There's the kitchen that serves the food. There's the craft corner at the daycare center, right? So when you break that down, and this can be a great fun exercise for like your whole staff to get involved and think about philanthropy. But when you start breaking that down and you have that in your head, when you start getting to know donors, you're looking for that connection. You're not trying to sell them on buying something or donating something they don't care about. Somebody's going to be interested in the senior program. Someone's going to be interested in homeless. Someone's going to be interested in children, and specifically children with mental difficulties or physical disabilities. Like, you need to know your mission and your services so well that when you're having coffee with somebody and they talk about the things that they care about or the things they already support, in your head you're like tick tick tick. You're making that match, because that later is what you're going to ask them to support. And they're going to be grateful to you for having had that opportunity. It might not be now. The other trick is, as you're ticking it off, maybe you're taking notes while you're meeting with them or you're recording a Zoom call, but make sure that before you forget, you mark that down somewhere in your CRM, in a file folder, like whatever it is. Get it down so that you can reference it later. But it's so worth that step, because if you're thinking about it in that terms, it's not just, I don't know what they care about, this is what we need. It's powerful, so powerful. The fourth step is the cultivation. It is the picking up the phone, sending a thank you note, engaging with them, inviting them to a special event, a meet and greet or an open house, a breakfast with the CEO. It's having coffee with them. It's those touch points. And it is the dating period, as I often talk about. So it's that period of getting to know them, having them get to know you and the organization. It's that cultivation piece. That is really effective when you are looking for opportunities to connect with them, when you're looking for ways to connect them to the mission, like videos and thank you notes and art pictures drawn by the kids that you support, things like that. Other things like if you follow them on LinkedIn and they get a promotion, send them a little note or an email, say congratulations. You're thinking about them, right? You do that when you're dating, right? You send them a little text randomly in the middle of the afternoon, like, hey, I had a great time at dinner last night. It's about looking for those opportunities. One, I had a gentleman, a donor whose son was a football player, on the local high school. And so he would often score the winning touchdown, or they would publish his name in the paper, and I would get a Google alert for that. And so then I would send them the link, and I would be like, congratulations, Doug did amazing on Friday night. And the guy, the proud papa would be like, thanks, let's have lunch. Because it's just, you're thinking about them, them, and dads love that. But you're seeking a connection. You're seeking a way to say, I know what you care about. You care about your kids, and you're proud of them. And, let's have some further conversation. So
I agree. And I feel like that's the thing that people who are looking for that like marketing skinny pill, they forget about. They forget that it really is that personal connection that drives relationships and makes things really come together in the end. Like, your marketing is there to support that cycle and to continually educate and make those little touches, so that way they don't forget about you and they don't get lost out in, the world without ever having heard your name for a while. But then it's like that actual reaching out and talking to somebody that brings it back and makes it right. I mean, like, even when I'm in my social feed, if I'm scrolling through something and I see something that I think would work for a client, I just I just pop right over in a messenger and I'm like, hey, look at this crazy post. Like, I think that you could communicate your story this way and that would really work. But I'm always like thinking that way, or I'll get out of a consulting call with one client and then immediately email another one. Hey, we just had this crazy idea. Like, this could work for you too. And especially if they're different areas of the United States, it's not like competing, but it's just a way to like keep them like, and then they email me back and they'll be like, how amazing is it that you just thought of me? And I'm like, well, I'm actually always kind of thinking of you. It's strange, but awesome at the same time. Like, your troubles are brewing in the back of my head. I'm just figuring out how to solve them. But that's how, I do the same thing. So yes, you're totally right. And I think people just need to remember that it's about making sure that you're making those personal connections, not just taking that marketing, like, what can I do to market? And I'm like, but it's everything. It's the whole circle. It's not just the marketing. Okay, I'll stop talking now, so that way you can get us, because you said the cultivation. That's
forward cultivation. And the one thing I will say is that can feel very overwhelming. You're an executive director and you've got to wear 1,000 hats and you're always putting out fires. You're like, oh my God, I cannot even keep track who's football players, whatever.
Yeah.
That's why I say, you run that donor list and then you take 5 or 10 and you're like, these are the 5 that I'm going to concentrate on right now. These are the ones I'm going to set up Google alerts for. These are the ones I'm going to contact every 3 weeks or whatever. Like, don't think you have to work on you have to develop personal relationships with 100 donors at a time. Mm-hmm. Just one little piece. That's where you get started. And then, something will happen. Somebody goes to Florida for the month or for the winter and they're not really interested in talking to you. They just pull somebody else in and you work on those 5 people at a time. It doesn't have to be overwhelming as long as you take it in bite-sized pieces. Okay. And the 5th one is the old qualify and research. That's getting to know your donor, getting to know them is researching them. Google, I often use like a wealth screening or some other technology to help with that. But one of the things I always have my clients do, I give them a tool, a donor profile sheet. And it's a couple of pages, but it's really taking all that information that you learn and putting it into a structure to develop a full picture. It's their dating profile, honestly. It's who are they? Where do they work? What do they do? How do they spend their time? Their children's names. Their mom was a teacher. Their dad was an engineer. They used to live in Missouri and now they live in Cleveland. All those pieces, because if you're going to honestly connect with someone, if you're going to have an authentic relationship and you're eventually going to match them with funding a program that is passionate, you've got to get all that out of your head and put it into something. And also so you can share that with board members or volunteers or your leadership to say, this is this person that I have gotten to know and here's their profile, so that you can have a thoughtful conversation with them in the next stage about, hey, let me tell you about the new daycare center that I know you care about and you've supported. This is what we want to do and this is why it's important. And we would like you to make a gift of at least $10,000. Coming to that point isn't out of nowhere, right? Putting the ring in front of somebody doesn't happen overnight. It's about the relationship and getting to know them and making that qualified match and doing a little research to know what is their capacity, right? Are they someone that has $1 million home and is a VP position and can make a $10,000 gift? Or are they more of the donor that's going to put you in their automatic payroll deduction for $30 every paycheck, right? You need to know where someone's coming from. But yeah, that's it. It's the development assessment. It's the stewardship. It's the saying thank you. It's breaking down your services so you can match it with somebody. It's the relationship building, that cultivation, and then ultimately building that profile so that you are ready. You're ready to have that conversation with them. They're ready and waiting for it. And it bolsters your confidence to have that much information and be ready to be like, yeah, I know we're ready to pop the question.
I also feel like for the people who are time pressed, those are going to be the people who are least likely to want to document because it takes time to document. But I have to tell you that if you document this, you then create a system through which you can delegate some of this activity. I have an awesome success story for Boone History and Culture Center. I got to interview Mary Ellen, who is like their lady of all organization and things. And she took all the data and she paired it up with board members and volunteers. And they did a one-day giving drive and raised $40,000 because she had the data, because it was organized. And she like thought through and was like, hey, this person's an engineer, this person's an engineer, or this person's dad's an engineer, they would have a great conversation. And here is their past giving. Here's why they're involved. Here's the things they do. And so she like prepped them. She didn't have all these conversations. They had them. And that was so awesome. And so if you are a person who is going to not document because it takes you time, just know that in taking the time, you create the ability to delegate. And you can hear Mary Ellen's whole story too. I interviewed her, so it's on our podcast. But yeah, so you can listen to that there. So the in the 8, what we said 6. Why did I say 6? I don't know. Maybe because 18 divided by 3 is 6. The 18-month life cycle of a donor. Can you tell people like what to expect along the way? Like kind of maybe the benchmarks, because you're like leading us up to the spot and kind of in the middle is where we start talking to them. So what does that look like?
We talk about the donor life cycle, the donor journey. There's a lot of fancy terms for it. Ultimately, it really is the point at which they're aware, right? The introduction to the organization via a board member or friend, or all that wonderful marketing that's happening. They become aware of the organization. It's point of entry. Point of entry is really important for me. I think a lot of nonprofits are looking for new donors, but there has to be a point at which they come to you, right? They attend an event, they download something, whatever it is, right? They come to you. Acquisition is when they become a donor. They cut that check, that first check. Stewardship is the saying thank you. Cultivation is the relationship building. Then you're going to solicit. You're going to ask them. Then you're going to steward them some more. You're going to say thank you, and you're going to be honestly, genuine, appreciative. And then you're going to cultivate that relationship. So that's all fancy for saying you're going to date that donor for 18 months. You're going to say, well, this is a person who might be interested in donating. I'm going to send them some materials, or I'm going to ask a board member to introduce me. We're going to go to coffee, and that goes well. We might go to lunch, and then I'm going to find ways to connect them to the mission. And that's the really critical piece. What you're talking about with so many of your examples is that connecting them, the educating and inspire them. People, they want to know what's going on. They want to know how you're developing. They want to know the latest research. If they care about your mission, they want to be on the inside. They want to know. You're going to engage them. And you're eventually, when you feel like when you're at the point where you know them and they know you, and you have a really good sense of what that match is, and there's a need at that time for that organization, that's when you're going to make the ask. That 18-month cycle, the benchmarks really are identification, cultivation, stewardship, and then saying thank you. and then doing it all over again. But dating is one way to describe it. The other way is that it's an elevation. It's a journey, right? From just these inklings where they kind of know you, you met at a party, to where they become more involved and they get to know you and they volunteer. Maybe they're a board member and they've attended some events to the point where you've met with them several times, and then you're ready, they're ready, and you're ready for a financial conversation. It's an evolution. And so you always want to be thinking about, are you moving that relationship forward? Are you stagnant? Are you just having coffee for the sake of having coffee? Or with every interaction, are you moving that person forward to the goal of eventually having that financial conversation?
So you're thinking, what is the next step? And am I giving them a clear view of what that next step might be? So you might have coffee, and then your next step might be getting them to an event where they can learn more and maybe become more aware of the organization. And so at the end of coffee, you might say, hey, we have an event coming up. I want to, can I get you a couple tickets? And or maybe they're already loving you, and so maybe they buy a table or whatever that is. But so that's what you're talking about. Just kind of knowing, hey, this is coming up. I need to let them know that this is the next step. And then at the event, you're like, hey, how's it going? So glad you're here. We'll have to have coffee again sometime.
The tip I'll give you is that I never have a dinner conversation. I never go to a donor meeting or coffee without some agenda in my head. Now, I don't know where that conversation is going to evolve, but I always have a goal at the end. My goal is to get them to the next event. My goal is to invite them to breakfast with the CEO, or to have them do a site visit, because I think maybe they're interested in the daycare program. So then the next step is to get them to tour that daycare center, right? So always think about, with this interaction, what is the next step that you're trying to seek? And along that path, 18 months is a fairly long time to build that relationship. And sometimes, it could be really quick. You might fall in love right away and ask them to marry you. I've had donors where, again, we were doing with $1 million fund. It took 20 years of cultivation off and on to have that conversation. But, the other thing you can do is be introspective. At some point, step back and say, okay, are we moving along? How is this person feeling? How am I feeling? Is this working? Am I moving them along? And you can ask them too. You can say, hey, how are you feeling about the organization? Is there things that you would like to know more about, or things you would like to see, or anything that's confusing to you? How are you feeling? They'll tell you. And people love to give their opinions. So yeah, again, do a check-in with yourself and with the donor.
And then especially if they're not responding, or you're not getting feedback from them, communication back. We do this a lot in our conversations. I don't know if you do it in donor cultivation, but we'll say, you know what, this does not feel like the right time for you right now. And so we're just going to step back, and we'll check in in a while, but we're just going to step back for now. Do you ever do that? And just have that type of conversation, or is it just I don't know, let it go?
Yeah, no, I think it depends upon the person, but you definitely can say, hey, look, again, you know them. So you're like, look, I know that you're heading to retirement. You're getting ready to sell your business. Your kids are going off to college. I know it's tax season. Hey, I'll check in with you after April 15th. Just so you acknowledge the fact that you know where they're at, and say, hey, I know I haven't heard back from you in a while. That's cool. Let's get through your busy season, and then I'll follow up with you in a couple of months. Again, I always, maybe this is my naivete, but I always lean towards the glass half full. There's a reason. People are not ignoring you because they don't like you, or because they're done with the organization. Life gets in the way. Life is busy. We all have lots of responsibilities to our parents, to our aging parents, to our children, to our spouses, to our jobs, to our neighborhood, to our community, to our other volunteer roles. So really being understanding of where people are at, and say, that's okay. This might not be the right time. I'll check back with you in a little bit. It means a lot to them. You speaking to where they're at is very meaningful.
I had this great conversation over Thanksgiving with a gal who works in DC, and she was like, Monica, I think it's so great that you're encouraging these nonprofits to send multiple emails throughout the month of December, because half the time I don't even open the email until it's the fourth time it's in my inbox. And she's like, I always have every intention of giving. It's just that I don't have time to do that process right now. And I then forget about it because I clean out my inbox. So when it shows up again, I'm not offended. I'm thankful that they reminded me. And so that's exactly what you're saying here. We're busy. So you're not badgering people by any means. I mean, unless your emails are really gross, but don't do those emails. Like, no one likes getting. So I do feel like, and we're kind of like leading in this direction, like a lot of my smaller nonprofits, they are apprehensive about asking someone for a more major gift. So do you have any advice for them, like to overcome that fear? Like, I guess we just said, hey, people need to be asked more than once, but anything else, like give them some therapy.
I think, first thing is I would say, don't be. People want to be asked. People want to be supportive. As I said, I've never asked someone for something that they didn't already want to do. I'm giving them an opportunity to support something that they already care about. My advice would be, and this is, speaking from my personal experience and from the clients that I work with, is do your homework so that you feel confident. You feel confident going. You're not going blindly into that conversation. Build a relationship. Speak with passion. People will respond so much to that. You have no idea what your passion about your mission and the work that you're doing will speak to somebody. Don't be afraid to share that. And know that it's always about timing. It might not be right now, but it's never in vain building that relationship and speaking your truth. Be donor-centric. Be focused on that match. What is it that they care about and they want to do? Because if you're looking to them for guidance and you're letting them lead the charge, you're never going to offend them because they want to be there. And just be thoughtful about it. You're not selling anything. You're not selling a used car. You're giving them an opportunity to make a meaningful impact on a mission and organization they already care about. So if they're already in your cycle, this is just the next step. And if you follow the process, if you are building that relationship, it's not coming out of left field. When you ask for that large gift, they really should have a sense of that's already coming. And then you just work out the details.
That's awesome. Okay, so my last question, because I have people ask me about this pretty regularly, is getting more volunteer involvement for things like raising money. Even like we do peer-to-peers in our year-end fundraising campaign, Como Gives, and they're always like, well, how do I get my volunteers to do this fundraising for me? So, I mean, we talked earlier about you're going to have all your information organized. So this is going to be something like even picking the people that you're going to have ask for you would be easier. I'm not going to say it's ezy, but it would be easier because you're so organized, right? Underneath this method. Are there other things that you would suggest to like allow volunteers to help you in this dating process?
Yeah, it's simple things like, who signs your thank you letters, right? You get a gift in. Is there an automatic electronic signature that goes out, or is there an opportunity for some personalization on there, whether it's your CEO or board members? I have a client that brings us thank you notes to every monthly board meeting and then just passes them around, and board members sign thank you letters with little notes. Also, they take the first 5 or 10 minutes of each board meeting and they pass out thank you cards with a little script, and they give them names of not most recent donors, but just donors in general, so that some donor randomly gets a thank you note from a board member. And it's like, wow, I donated like 6 months ago and I got this handwritten thank you note from a board member. That's pretty impressive. And I'm speaking a lot about board members, have them review your donor list for folks that they know, do meet and greets, invite them to meetings with donors. We get very caught up in the operation and the day to day, and like, this is what we do now, this is what we do now. But if you seek opportunities to add people to that, like if you're going to have lunch with a donor, who could you bring? Maybe it's a staff person, a program person, maybe it's a board member, right? So again, like if that person's an engineer, then who on your board is in that area, right? Is science or math, or maybe they live in the same community. What are those opportunities? It's really about that, gathering your facts, having your data, and utilizing each volunteer, whether it's a volunteer or a board member, to exemplify their strengths. One of the things I do with my clients is you recruit a board member for a reason, right? Because they live in a certain community, they have a certain skill set, they know people in this particular circle, right? And then you get them on the board and you just put them in the process. And so very often we'll do a board member donor profile. Think about them as your largest prospects. They have already committed to being an ambassador. Make sure you get to know them for all of those and then utilize them. That's the thing, is you have to get used to asking. You have to get used to looking for opportunities to involve people and then not being afraid to say, hey, Joe, I'm going to meet with this donor. Would you like to come? Or I'm putting together this document. You're a financial advisor. Would you take a look at it? Would you write a guest article for our blog, right? Like, utilize those resources. It's the same thing with your volunteers, right? If they're an office volunteer or they put together a walk team, why are they doing that? And how do you support them? And what are the things that they're connected to? I did a walk, and we had a family put together a walk team, and I met the mom at the walk, and she was a pretty impressive lady. And she was an attorney at a law firm. And so I was like, hey, let's have a prayer conversation. And that led to a much bigger walk team, a corporate sponsorship from her firm. She eventually became a board member. Her daughter became like the walk hero. Their whole family became involved. The firm became involved. It started with that one spark to say, hey, let's talk about how you might want to get more involved, because she was at that point on the outside. She was just coming because she cared about the mission and she wanted to empower her family. But once I gave her a way to do more and be more engaged, she just ran with it. So, yeah.
You gave her the path too, which is like the key, right? And like from the fact that you built your own desk 100 years ago, and and now you're like, you're just such a problem solver. I love it. And I love how you're like, I almost didn't ask you, like, are there more tips for volunteers to get involved? But I'm so glad I did, because those are such good ideas. I mean, one memory it sparked for me was when I first started selling. Like, I'm a talkative, outgoing, fast thinking human. My brother is a slow talking, processing, analytical human. And I would have these meetings with business people, and on the phone, I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to connect with these people. Like, they're slow talking, slow processing humans. And so I would bring my brother to these meetings with me. And I'm like, the goal is that when I start derailing, you just slow everything down for me. Like, we even had like hand signals that he like, get it together, Monica, slow it down. But it's the same thing. And I love it. Those were such good suggestions. I've learned so much. So I am going to list off the 5 things that you're going to do to cultivate donors and date them, to prepare them for multi-figure asks. So that way I have them solidified in my memory and everybody can leave with them at top of mind. So the first one is the development assessment. So pulling your list and sorting it. Number 2 is stewardship, saying thank you and appreciating them. Number 3 was breaking down your services and finding the match between the client and your services. And then number 4 was cultivation. So actually contacting them and like starting that relationship, moving in the right direction. And then number 5 was qualify and research. So that way you have everything together and you can make the right ask. You are a smart lady. Okay, so tell us how you, I mean, you can tell us how you help people. That would be great. But then also tell us how people can get in contact with you so that way you can help them.
Well, it's you can reach me. It's really easy. Thank you to my husband for the last name Block. But my website is lockstep.com. So it's LOCKESTEP.com. Also on Facebook at Lockstep, or Lockstep Partners, I think, with two P's. I'm not super unsociable. My Facebook's got some. I put a lot of good tips out there, and you can. I have a great email, so you can go to my website and sign up for my email, and I do more tips like this on a regular basis. But for me, it's very much like this. When I work with a client, we dig in and we do the assessment and we figure out what they're looking for. And they're always in shock and awe at the gems that are within their own data. And that's my soapbox. There's nonprofits are always seeking new donors, they're always seeking new audiences, and much like business, where a current customer is so much more valuable, and it's 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer or a new donor than to build a relationship with the ones you already have. And in nonprofit, where there's such turnover and change and everything, it's so easy to let those amazing people get lost in the shuffle. So my speech is always find those diamonds in the rough, pull them back out, build the relationship, use data and build and tools to strengthen and to build your confidence. And then just go have fun, right? Have some lunches, have some breakfast, meet with people, have conversations, be genuinely interested in them. And the sky is the limit for where you will go. And they will introduce you to other people, and they will be grateful for the opportunity that you have given them to have a greater impact on something that they care about.
So for you people out there who are scared of asking for donations, listen to this episode again and write down some of the awesome words that Danielle just shared with us. And you can use them as mantras, because your self-talk is phenomenal. I just love it. Your head is in absolutely the right place. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
So thank you so much for your time today. Once again, my name is Monica Pitts, and you're listening to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. Now, before I let you go, I just want to remind you about that little favor I asked you about in the beginning. Will you please review this podcast wherever you're listening? It will help us show up when people are looking for answers to the problems that this podcast will help them solve. So if you're a fan and you haven't reviewed the podcast, please leave me a review. That would be so awesome. I would love to hear your feedback. And if this was your first time, double welcome. And I hope you learned a thing or two. So leave a review so we can connect with even more awesome nonprofits just like you and help them on their journey to less stressful and more successful marketing. Thanks again for your time today. Now, until next time, go forth and market with purpose.